He was too young to have much language, but the words he did know were colourful. Why is it that children and migrants seem to learn swear words before all else? There isn't any way that he could have known what was happening to him. But in years to come, he would look back and marvel at his good fortune and at the remarkable string of coincidences that brought about his placement in this childless family. At first, he waited for his father to return. In the past, his father had always returned, so his young brain had no reason to believe otherwise. Each night, when he reluctantly went to bed, he would lie on the extreme edge of the small bed so that his father would have room when he came to sleep. Leave room for Diddy? This must have gone on for some time before he sensed that Diddy wasn't coming back. What panic he must have felt. What a sense of abandonment. He liked the people who were looking after him, but they were not his family. He probably missed his mum, and he definitely would have missed his older brother, as later accounts have him keeping the little one fed and looked after when things got bad at home. There was great sadness and more than a little despair in the home that he had come from. Alcohol was used liberally to numb the pain. The war had seen the father come home a hero, being awarded the second highest medal for bravery. If he had been wounded in that action, he probably would have been awarded the Victoria Cross. This was no isolated act of bravery. He was mentioned in dispatches many times. Kokoda, Palestine, Tobruk, wherever the Australian Army distinguished itself, he was there. As with all true heroes, he never spoke of what he saw or what he achieved. He never marched on Anzac Day, and he sold his medals when times got tough. The mother stayed home and tried to hold her world together while her man was at war. When he got home, he wasn't the handsome, self-assured young man. When things got very bad, alcohol offered a way out, at least for a time. It wasn't always that way. They were both courageous souls who achieved long periods of sobriety. They fought their demons as best they could. Long periods of drunken neglect, followed by periods of hope. The cycle continued long enough for the father to realise that something had to be done. In Melbourne, there was a sister who, although married, had no children, though she dearly wanted them. What desperate conversations must have come before that plane trip to Melbourne? How many sleepless nights? Were there tears from the mother, or did she resign herself to the fact that the little one needed a chance? Or was she just out of it when the father made that journey? The early months were chaotic. The new mother was exhausted by the constant demands of this small, traumatized whirlwind who never seemed to sleep. The earliest photo of the little one shows him sitting on the lawn in the backyard, all dressed up. Maybe they were going visiting. Everyone in the new father's family would be most interested to see this new child. He was clutching a doll, a gollywog as it was known in those days. He had a big grin on his face. What a fascinating photograph this is. It took a long time for the little one to feel that this was his new family. He put up quite a fight, but in the end, love conquers all, and he knew this was his new home. Those early years with just his mum for company, waiting for his dad to come home from work, always at the same time and always on his bike, a lingering reminder of his professional cycling career, were extremely happy. Though memories of those first few years are fuzzy, sleepy afternoons, trips to the shops, toys, sleeping in with Dad on Saturday mornings. From all accounts, leaving the house with the little one was always an adventure, and sometimes embarrassing. Armed with his limited but colourful vocabulary from his previous life, he once pointed out to his mother a poster at the tram stop. It was an advertisement for wine. "Look, Mum, Plonk." This was early 1950s, and Plonk was a cheap wine that only down-and-outs drank. Not exactly the image that a new mum wanted to convey to the potential passengers waiting at the tram stop. When it was time for kindergarten, he trotted off apprehensively, but despite having the other children to play with, he was not impressed with the teachers and eventually decided that he did not want to go anymore. The decision probably came after one particularly bad morning when he set out with a rose to give to his teacher. Unfortunately, the long, exciting walk from home to the church hall took a particularly high toll on the petals of the rose, so much so that the rose was headless by the time he arrived. This was very embarrassing and probably tipped the scales in favour of asking Mum if he could stay home. To his great delight, she said yes. As the weeks, months, and years went by, he fell deeply in love with this beautiful, warm, loving woman. She was fun for a small boy to be around. She was very patient and seemed to enjoy his games and his constant chatter. She didn't speak to him the way other grown-ups did, and she listened to him when he had important stuff to tell her. She loved music and words, the love of which she passed on to the boy. She instilled in him a deep respect for women and old people. They had survived everything that life had thrown at them, and for that they deserved a little respect. She didn't want to make the boy fearful, but there was one subject that she was adamant about. Alcohol destroys lives. The boy absorbed this message. Television arrived when he was 6 years old, but did not come into his house until he was 8. He was part of the first generation to grow up with television, and it was to change his life in the same way that it changed so many others. Before TV, there was sitting in front of the fire on winter's nights listening to the radio, or just playing with toys until it was time for bed. In those days, there were local cinemas in most suburbs, and his was just a short walk away. There are vague memories of movies with Mickey Rooney being turned into a superboy after a nuclear explosion. Staying awake was difficult at that age, and it was not considered unseemly for a young fellow to turn up in his pajamas.